Hello, you beautiful bastards. My name is For Extraordinaire, and we have Dev Diary 68 for CK3. Inspiration never dies. Now, we've been kind of teased around a bit from the devs, particularly this week, about getting relics, and we finally have some coverage on that because Dev Diary number 68 has some very big details on relics, but more specifically, the mechanics behind getting relics. For example, inspiration is a very big mechanic. Just let me read this here. As you may already know, artifacts are making a triumphant return to in royal court. The artifacts themselves will be familiar to those of you who have used them in CK2, but how you actually get your hands on them will be slightly different. And as you know, in CK2, it was fairly automated. You just clicked go discover a relic on a quest, or you got a specific event kind of out of nowhere, like the immortality chain. That's not related to relics, but just in terms of how spontaneous it was. So it was usually fairly random unless you just wanted to complete your treasury, in which case you had the option to go questing for a relic. As such, I won't talk about the artifacts themselves for now, but I'll be going over one of the major ways of how you will be able to acquire artifacts. Characters throughout the world can gain what we call an inspiration. Inspirations come about as a character is seeking to create something extraordinary, resulting in the character wanting to pursue the means of realizing their inspiration. They may want to write a great tome of knowledge, weave a tapestry, or forge a magnificent crown. Some of the relics we actually saw in CK2, and it seems they're making a comeback in CK3. There are many different kinds of inspirations, all resulting in various types of artifacts upon completion. An inspiration can be broad, such as someone wanting to merely forge a weapon, or very specific, like a character wanting to forge a sword. Okay, so I don't think wanting to forge a weapon is that much broader than wanting to forge a sword. I think a better example would be like wanting to quest for the holy relic, like maybe a certain like shield of a saint, or like the holy ark, or the ark of the covenant. I mean, I don't think I don't think you're getting much more specific by wanting to forge a sword. Going down from a weapon, but I digress. Anyhow, inspirations only occur for landless characters, and this is interesting because it's a major mechanic that won't be interacting with your character. You're just going to have to indirectly influence it through your actions, like building up your court and getting some of these more interesting characters. That's what I'm kind of getting off of this. We want to extend the immersion of guests and courtiers by making them valuable to you, even if you have no desire to push their claims or use their skills as a counselor. And this is something I've really been looking forward to. I feel that, like there's so many just characters sitting around, especially in larger courts. It's going to be great to be able to actually use them and kind of just push them towards making relics or being good little slaves and forging your masterpieces for you, or your warforge. So you can basically push their claims or use their skills as a counselor. Uh, Inspired characters will travel the world from court to court, seeking a wealthy monarch to sponsor them in their creation. Important to note that you have to be wealthy to forge these relics. You could be wealthy in CK2, but you could also be fairly poor and still get like average relics that give you like small boosts to martial and learning. Realms with a high grandeur will be able to attract inspired characters more frequently than those with low grandeur, granting them a higher chance at receiving skilled craftsmen that will be able to forge an artifact to meet your expectations. Once an inspired character arrives at your court, you can choose to sponsor them by giving them the gold they ask for. A skilled character will demand larger amounts of gold, but will also yield better results in creating an artifact. Most of the time, at least. Yeah, there were definitely some funny failure rates in CK2 too. For example, I got like a rusty dagger when I gave this guy like 200 gold. And then I think one of the other times, like the blacksmith was trying to bang my daughter, so I had to execute him. Some crazy stuff that happens when you're just trying to forge a simple sword. Anyhow, no one is infallible after all. The skill that's definitely true for just Crusader Kings in general. The skill that is relevant depends on the type of artifact that they want to make. For example, a weapon and the quality it gets is dependent on the character's martial and prowess skill. So buffing martial a bit here later on. So I know martial is kind of important. I'll just talk about this a little bit, kind of for especially in character creation early on. You want to have a little bit of an advantage over your fellow counts, especially on smaller starts. So martial is very important when you want to lead your armies too, and just have that little boost when you're much smaller. But now that there's kind of relics and different like foraging options in the game to kind of get these inspirations and whatnot, and craft these epic weapons, Marshall is actually going to play a bigger role later on into the game when you start forming kingdoms and empires later on. If you don't want to start out as like a massive kingdom like me, you like to start out as a count and grow to a bigger size. Marshall is still going to kind of have a different purpose, though it's still going to at least have a purpose as opposed to its current state in CK3, where if you're a kingdom or an empire, you have tons of capable generals. You don't necessarily need to marshal up and lord over or join your vassals in wars. I mean, there's still some perks that you can have and benefit as like a martial focused character, kind of like with control and whatnot, but still I think martial falls off a bit later into the game. All right, so after funding and inspiration, then you can see some of the pictures here, similar to CK2 in that you can fund kind of these quests or whatever, but a bit different in terms of the outcome and seems to be a bit more flavored. After funding and inspiration, it will take some time for the character to create the artifact. During the creation process, various situations can happen, such as the character asking for better materials to work with. Below, you'll find such an example in which my inspired character finds excellent material at the local market. Approve the request and pay for the material, and you'll increase the overall quality of the artifact they'll produce. An inspiration gains progress similar to that of a scheme. You'll gain progress depending on the chance each month, making the actual time it takes to complete. Okay, I thought there was a typo, but it's to complete. Once the inspiration reaches full progress, the character will approach you to present their creation. And then, mind you, this is not the only way in which you can get an artifact. Inspirations exist to serve as the most significant means of doing so, since they'll generally grant you artifacts of a higher quality. So again, very similar to CK2. Some artifacts can be passed down. There's various other events kind of not tied to inspirations here in CK3, where you can receive artifacts. You can still get artifacts, and I assume like one of these events is the Crusades too, but you can still get artifacts by other means, such as getting them in events. I hope you enjoyed this brief look into how an artifact can come about. Stay tuned for more information regarding the Royal Court, and sadly, no teaser for what's going to be in next week's Dev Diary. I think they followed the same thing last week by not providing a teaser. Anyhow, thank you guys so much for watching. Fairly exciting, but a very low-profile dev diary, if I do say so myself. I also have to complain a little bit about the artifact picture here. In CK2, the relics were a bit more detailed with the just the artifacts design and whatnot. This is kind of plain, and I don't like how it looks too similar to like a trait. It can kind of be mixed up with other traits, especially like different prowess levels and whatnot, or like maybe like martial specialization. That's kind of a bit similar with the emission of stars, but I mean, like on the icon here, I'm just kind of disappointed that it's just a flat picture. I think the relics in CK2 at least had some kind of 3D model. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I got back to CK2, but if this is like the relic, it may be just a placeholder for the picture here, but if this is just a broad one-size-fits-all picture for relics, I'm going to be a bit disappointed. But anyhow, this has been 4 Extraordinaire. I hope you guys like the Dev Diary, and join me next week for Dev Diary 69. All right, see you guys. Peace.